What's up, y'all? It's your favorite Thembo heartthrob you've somehow convinced yourself isn't furry, Princess Dank. And I'm here today with a review of the Trap House Techno Fusion project, Equinox by BASSDOG and Filterocity. This collaborative album, released in January 2024, is not only the latest project from Filterocity, it is the first full-length project from BASSDOG, and the most recent release from the furry music label Aural Alliance. This is actually Filterocity's fifth full-length project after 2022's Treble, with its fast-paced and high-pitched nature, 2023's Ego, with its deep, bassy, self-indulgent club bangers. Also from 2023, we had Medicine, which was filled with funky, glitchy, stuttering, chill vibes, and Live Links, which was a remix album of tracks released between 2021 and 2023. On BASSDOG's side, this was preceded by an EP titled Friends, released several months prior to this album. Outside of this, BASSDOG has released mostly singles and bootlegs of other popular songs, with this being, as I said, their first full-length project. In fact, the Friends EP that the two of them released in November 2023 constitutes 3 of the 4 first tracks on Equinox. In total, this project is a trim 29 minutes. It's lean, mean, to the point, with few dull moments. Kicking things off, we have Life, featuring Nat James, who was previously featured on a Filterocity track titled Ego, which was the title track off of that same album. While I was definitely a fan of that earlier track, I feel like Nat shows up even more here compared with on Ego. The production on this thing is stuttering and grimy with tons of forward momentum, really kicking off the project on a good foot, and really showing how these two artists, BASSDOG aka Chi and Filterocity aka Treble, work well together. This one's quickly followed up by Friends, which was the title track of the earlier EP. This really keeps the momentum of the album going, and it sounds like something I'd bump in a souped up hatchback as my blood turns to chrome. I have no idea how cars work. Here, the vocals are much more down-pitched and layered into the mix than they were on Life. And together with the deep, wobbly synth lead, the vocals really keep things all tied together. Next up, we have the first track, which was not featured on the Friends EP, which is Storm Clouds, which really brings the tempo of the entire album down and opens it up with 2 different vocalists playing off of one another. It keeps the vibe running steady, however, even if it's a lot lighter than the first 2 tracks. It's uplifting and less edgy and aggressive compared to the first 2, and really shows the range that Chi and Treble are working with here. This one sort of feels like floating on a cloud with the wide oscillating bass line under the twittering hi-hats and the fat bass. Easily, Storm Clouds is one of my favorite tracks on the project. Halfway through the album, we come to the one that rounds out the Friends EP, Water Slide. So this is the last previously released material off of this project. It's probably the most trap influence of the tracks here, with the offset choral vocals that appear throughout counteracting the dark, edgy tone and whispered vocals that populate the majority of the track. And this one definitely wins the award for Best Named Song, as it feels like you are going down a darkened water slide into hell. Probably one of the lesser tracks off of the project, but a good transition into the second half of it. Next up, we have Reverie, which is built around this heavily distorted, constantly fluctuating vocal sample, and this playful drum loop that really bounce off of one another really nicely. Also, about halfway through the track, they introduce these spoken word samples that remind me something of like an old Minnesota track. This one might also be one of the lesser tracks on the project, one of the ones that I'll probably revisit less frequently, but it continues to show the range that these two have as a duo. Track 6, X, brings us back to the swaggering, vocal-centered hip-hop side of the project. It pulses with this melodic buzzsaw of a lead and plays with its tempo a couple of times, which really nicely shows just how dark but playful a lot of Equinox can be. This one I actually wasn't so hot on when I first heard the project, but as I've listened to it more, it has grown on me significantly, and this has probably become one of my favorite tracks off of Equinox. The second to last track, Fly, is an inversion of the previous track, X, with up-pitched vocal samples over a similar drum loop. This one's more like a late-night club banger featuring that same buzzsaw synth, or at least a very similar one. The Fly is definitely one of the more understated tracks on the project, but it's not something to be just glossed over. We close out with the title track, Equinox, which is the longest track on the project. It's the first pillowy soft vibe song since Storm Clouds, which for me almost sounds like an early 2000s Moby track with how it handles its vocal samples and its overall vibe. And I mean that in the most complimentary way possible. Early 2000s Moby was my shit growing up. It's got this deep pulsating bass line which undercuts on every beat the cloud-thin pad that's running throughout. Since listening to this project on release day, I have listened to it a number of times, and this is definitely something that I'm going to be coming back to as the year goes on. There are multiple real standouts on this thing, like Life, Friends, Storm Clouds, Equinox, and X. More than enough to write home about. And I'm excited, having, prior to this release, reviewed Filterocity's catalog up to this point to see where else he goes, especially with his insane release schedule of 3 albums last year. I'm also very excited to see what BASSDOG does, either in collaborative projects like this or on his own in the future. This is a solid first full-length release, and I'm going to be giving this one a 4.5 out of 5. Let me know in the comments below what other projects you'd like me to take a look at. Priority will be given to furry music projects. I intend on going forward looking at new releases, but I'm definitely not opposed to looking at things released in the past, especially if they're more recent and I just kind of missed them. Thank you all for checking this out today, and if you haven't already, go check out Equinox by BASSDOG and Filterocity and released by Aural Alliance. And I will see you all on the next one.